All right. Well, thank you for stopping by, Greg. But you can't stay. Uh, don't seem to have too many people here yet. Hopefully, we start getting a few people in. Okay. I got a few topics I got lined up here. We can go over. See if anybody shows up. Skis Crasher. Hello. Well, thanks for stopping by anyway, Greg. Well, since we got at least one person in here, I guess I'll go over my first topic. I got the thing on here I came across to point out by Purple here that truckers are threatening to boycott Florida. Now, this is going to be a possibly one day a delay on delivery anything, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is this would be a good chance to, if there's delays and shortages in stores. That's why you have your garden in hand. Uh, the pup's doing good. She was being a little bit of a troublemaker yesterday, though, seeing she ate some tissues that she wasn't supposed to get into. And I ended up having to chase her around the house trying to pull one out of her mouth. And like I was saying, if you know end up with supply chain shortages is due to a strike, it's a good time to have your garden ready because you don't have to worry about the food shortages or anything. On a lighter note, came across an anime, since this is kind of crossing into territory of both gardening and anime, which are two things that I'm interested in. And this is an isekai anime, so it's even better because I get into that genre. Have Welcome to Farming Life in Another World, Isekai. In the introduction here, we have the guy dies of an serious illness. God brings him back to life, giving him full health and youth back, seeing as he apparently wasn't supposed to have a crappy life and be ill and sick all the time. So sends him to the fantasy world of his choice, and he also chooses he wants to be a farmer in this next life, seeing as he watched some farming when he was stuck in bed. And the god bestows upon him the almighty farming tool. And from there, he forms basically a whole community and becomes the mayor of that, that town. I've only watched the first episode, so I haven't really gotten too far into that anime. I am thinking about doing a video on identifying weeds, but unfortunately, that one is still illegal in Florida. unless it's medically prescribed, but I don't think we can grow it without, at least not without a license. I'd have to look into that. But if anybody wants to come in, you can if you want. This is all about just, I was planning on this to be just a hangout, but since no one showed up yet in the backstage, we'll just keep talking about the topics I've got lined up. Anyway, this almighty gardening tool he has is pretty interesting and quite magical. It's also referred to as the all-purpose farming tool, or AFT. In the start of the anime, we see that using it, he doesn't get tired or hungry while he's using it. And the thing can turn into any hand tool he can imagine, provided that it doesn't require electricity to use. Then again, if you're not getting tired or out using it, you don't really need the extra added aid of a electrical tool, do you? The tool can also become any weapon. Can become weapons he needs to protect himself. Well, while wielding it, he feels no fatigue. I already mentioned that. His strength is magnified to unmeasurable power while he's using it, effortlessly chopping down giant woods. And hostile creatures are passing through the mountain in this area. Uh, Also, while he's tilling the soil, well, not only does it make the soil fertile, well, it will automatically plant anything in the soil that he wishes just by thinking it. So quite the magical tool, and definitely one I would certainly would like to have. Yeah, if I could have any kind of magical farming tool, gardening tool. What kind of financially beneficial you can in gardening? Uh, uh, far as I can tell, the big thing how that is finding people to sell to. It's actually the biggest challenge to overcome when you're trying to make a profit with gardening. And the interesting thing is, really the only big difference between a garden and a farm is how much you can potentially make off of it. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but we want to get down into technicalities. These will A single plant, if it meets that threshold, could technically count as as a farm, even though it's just one plant. Only because it can make that amount of money. I'm not sure you can hear my bird in the background deciding to scream. Apparently, he decides this good time to have the song of his people, which is the "How loud can I possibly be?" Let's see. Get back. Go back to the screen share here. And our next thing up here, if I can just get ready here. Come on. All right. And this thing. All right. Okay. Share screen and voila. Scientists grow the first plants in lunar soil. This is soil that was collected during the Apollo 11, 12, and 17 missions. And it doesn't surprise me that they got something to sprout under the conditions they mentioned, but it also doesn't surprise me that they didn't survive too well. In a small lab growing garden, and the first seeds planted in lunar soil will have sprouted. A team of researchers led by Annalisa Paul at the University of Florida developed these experiments using a well-studied plant named Thale cress. Starting off with what is Thale cress? It's a small. Okay, it doesn't show that. Right. Small plant. Uh, do you plant nitrogen fixing plants or use supplements or both? For what? Interesting thing about nitrogen fixing the plants is it's not so much the plant itself that's fixing the nitrogen. It's the bacteria that the plant attracts. And if you're doing something like with beans or something, you want to get it before the bean forms, because then it just takes up all that nitrogen in for itself. Or if you mean the article I'm reading here, they didn't do any nitrogen fixing or anything for that. They used the regolith, a fine and powdery layer of debris that blankets the moon. I'm surprised. One thing I find surprising here is that stuff is like really sharp, sort of like shards of glass. So the surprising part here would be that the plant sprouts didn't have their tender roots damaged from the substrate that they were growing in, or maybe they did. It basically is the same as the stuff that we can find in here, but it doesn't have any organic matter. Which, when a plant's first sprouting, it actually doesn't. It actually doesn't need the nutrients in the soil. You can actually grow in nutrient deficient soil, well, starting out with, because it's not really taking the nutrients from the soil. It's using the nutrients from those starter leaves when it first comes up. And then later on, as it develops true leaves, that's when you need to have the nutrients in your soil. So it's basically just the light, mostly the temperature of the soil. It depends. It's dependent on. Some do require light, such as like carrots and stuff that tend to be more surface sown. But other than that, you don't really need it. You just need something for it to grow in, and of course, once it sprouts, you need the light. But you don't really need the nutrients in the soil at first. So that'd be why you'd see these stuff sprouting, even though it's growing in completely nutrient deficient soil. Seeds were planted in 12 pots containing the regolith, the Apollo 11, 12, and 17 mission. In 16, pots were filled with terrestrial volcanic soil as a control. That would be the one that we see in the far left here. That's actually doing well. In that picture there. That'd be the control. And they're grown under an LED lights. Seeds began to sprout after 2 days, and for the first 6 days, these also sprout appeared identical, which again makes sense since it's not really relying on the nutrients in the soil, as I mentioned. Though the thing that would concern me when it's first sprouting would be just how sharp that stuff is, since it's not being worn down by any kind of form of nature. Oh, and of course you also need water to start the sprouting process. After 16 days, the healthiest plants grew in lunar soil were small, while the sickliest plants displayed purple pigmentation, a sign of plant stress. None of the seedlings grew as well as those cultivated in terrestrial soil. The volcanic ash as a control. The team also examined gene expression and found that all lunar plants exhibited stress responses similar to those terrestrial plants struggling to grow in soil rich in metals, salts, and reactive oxygen and compounds. Which again makes sense since the lunar soil is rich in metals. Moreover, seedlings grown in an Apollo 11 sample, ones which were exposed to the lunar surface, is the longest, expressed genes is associated with nutrient starvation and toxicity. I'm actually kind of surprised you wouldn't see nutrient starvation across the board, seeing as you're not going to have any nutrients in the lunar soil to begin with. This suggests the prolonged regolith of exposure on the lunar surface leads to an enrichment in packed glass and metallic iron derived from impactors. So basically, it's forming glass and iron from meteor strikes to the lunar surface, making it more toxic for plant growth. These findings show that lunar habitat should be sited in region for relatively young regolith. NASA's upcoming Artemis mission provides a new incentive to explore the possibility of lunar agriculture and to support long-term missions. And that basically gets into creating. Personally, if I was to do lunar agriculture, you'd probably want to potted system rather than trying to grow in the lunar soil itself. So, what else I got here? Well, going back to the first topic, like I mentioned earlier, I'm planning to maybe do a video on identifying edible weeds. You'd be surprised how many weeds you might just be already growing that you can eat. Just off the top of my head, chances are you'd have purslane in Florida. Biden's alba is quite abundant, which I did a kind of a deep dive video on already. We got the pepper grass that grows around here, which is actually a species of brassica, not the same species of brassica that we domesticated, but another species. Uh, wood sorrel, wood sorrel, which is fairly common around here, has I've tasted that stuff. It has sort of like a lemonade flavor to it. It's really good tasting, but you do have to be very careful about uh, eating it, seeing it contains a lot of oxalic acid, which can cause is kidney stones. Yeah, hello. Nice to have you. Come on. And again, if anybody wants to come in, you got the link up top here. Then to StreamYards. I was planning on doing this as just sort of a casual hangout kind of thing. Let's see what else I got here on the list of headlines here, though, while I kill time. Okay, this one might be good. And soil microbes may be orchestrating in tree migrations. Microscopic soil creatures may be determining how quickly tree species march toward cooler conditions. I've been doing YouTube for longer than you. You have more subscribers. Yeah. Don't ask me how I do it. I guess it's just the luck of the draw with it. I don't exactly advertise myself all that much beyond just mentioning myself in the occasional live stream, which is actually a topics I should cover here in a moment. As the climate warms and some tree species shift towards cooler, more hospitable habitats, new research finds soil microbes could be playing a crucial role in determining where young trees can migrate and how well they survive when they arrive. Much like humans, and whose guts and skin are teeming with microbes, the soil below plants and trees contain unique microscopic creatures that help the tree take in nutrients and water. Yeah, basically the soil microbes actually effectively work in a very similar manner to the gut bacteria that we have, converting the nutrients in the soil to useful to any kind of a useful well, thing that the plant can take up. And some of the plants will actually release these nutrients into the soil to attract these microbes that they need to the roots. So that's how you can and seeing as this is a rare opportunity, being I'm still a fairly small channel myself, there's Greenleaf Gardening channel. Well, you can go subscribe to them if you're not. Published in the journal Nature, Ecology and Evolution, a new study finds nuance in the role played by soil biota. In some instances, there's a tiny fungi and bacteria constraint in where offspring can grow. But in higher elevations, where the species is headed as the climate warms, a less robust soil microbiome seems to create conditions where baby trees can thrive upslope. Jennifer, you're an associate professor at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, a co-author of the paper, said forest manager is in conservationists may consider accounting for a tree's microscopic soil creature is in the future, whereas they could determine how quickly species march toward cooler conditions. We tend to think that the factor is that determine where forests are on a landscape are largely driven by climate, but what these data shows soil and soil microbes in communities these might be a lot more important than we have ever appreciated in the past, as she said. Which makes sense. I mean, the tree is going to grow where the microbes best suit it. uh, I have an aversion to the shorts personally. I'd rather, if I'm going to do a short, or I'd rather do it as a regular video. Though, if you don't like to watch a short as a short, a little trick is if you go into the URL link and you change shorts, it's in the link to video, and then restart it, it'll play like a normal video. This little neat little trick. The research all hailing from the University of Tennessee, the Knoxville Department of Ecology and Evolution and Biology. He trekked into the Rocky Mountains to collect soil and seedlings beneath the cottonwood tree. He says it's low and high elevations. They found that the soil microbiomes below the tree looked very different depending on where the cottonwood is in question and was located. Back in the lab, the team simulated the species shift upslope by transplanting baby tree from lower elevation the soil was collected up in the mountains. It found that for tree in the comfortable middle of their range down near the base of a mountain, and their offspring thrived nearby in the rich microbe-filled soil while collecting right below their parent. But this really does fit a lot like with what we do. You know about having a good having the good soil life in your garden too. There have been saying things. You're not growing plants; you're growing soil, and this is actually a pretty good example of just what is meant by that. If you have good microbial life in your soil, well, there's a better chance you're going to have good healthy plants. This is all interconnected. But for trees, he's further up in the elevation. The research found the offspring did better when they moved even further up the mountain. That's interesting. That created conditions where offspring continued to move up the mountain, and population are going to split. Schweitzer said, if the cottonwood species becomes fragmented and the climate continues to warm, lower elevation cottonwoods may find themselves stranded, she said. Now, that's an interesting situation, as that can lead to speciation, and when you have a divide like that. So over time, what you could end up actually seeing is two different species of trees. Now, trees tend to grow fairly, take a long time, and so obviously any kind of speciation event with a tree would peak quite a long time. Um, and the question is whether the climate would last long enough for that to happen, or whether their conditions would change again and where they'd end up crossing again. Swisher said the planting cottonwood is in higher elevation in the soil from favorable areas. This could help trees succeed and keep forests intact as the climate changes. Trees vary even within a species, and their microbes vary, and their microbes might help or hinder when the species responds to climate change. And she said the positive and the negative interactions with microbes might really change population and fragmentation patterns. So might not even just be, if we were to really do a deep dive onto microbial life, it might not just be the amount of microbes in your soil, but the types as well. So having a by diversifying the microbes in your soil will probably give your plants a better chance to grow as well. So by doing that, I imagine, and by having different types of, if you're using any kind of fertilizer, you want to use using organic sources of fertilizer, or if you're making your compost, making it from a variety of different sources of material will probably help with a diverse group of microbes in that soil that you produce, or in that compost you produce. Then you can mix that into your soil. There you go. Microbes are a very diverse group of organisms. They are good kinds, bad kinds, and the interplay between the good and the bad kinds determines if the species ultimately benefits or suffers from a range of shift. And there's also ones that can be bad in some respects and good in some respects. Pattern. We if you move outside of the range of your enemy, you could benefit. But if you move away from symbiote, symbiote, and it's in decomposer, that could make it harder for them to get established. Makes sense. Science is understanding of how specific groups of bacteria interact with plant species is still in its infancy. It's the Chapman, an associate professor in the Department of Biology at Villanova University. He said the study highlighted how soil bacteria can mitigate range shifts with upslope from species, a factor that is established important in a warming climate. It's also things that we can take note for in our own garden. I like making biochar for my garden. It helps trap carbon in the ground. Yeah. So for more acid-loving plants, say for like sweet potatoes or blueberries, is you don't want to apply biochar directly. It would be better to you use that into your compost first, let it break down, and then apply that to those plants, because it can also affect the acidity levels of the soil. I listened to a podcast a few days ago saying that using human feces as fertilizer is very effective and very green. Human manure, yes. You do have to be careful with using any kind of feces like that, uh, 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 because of the bacteria that can be produced in it can be harmful. Well, for breaking down and stuff like that, you want to use a hot compost, and you have to really watch it because otherwise you can end up with a compost with a bacteria that could be harmful to humans. Also, using stuff like that, which I've been actually toying around with for Molly's waste, taking BPI, a approved biodegradable little plastic bags, which in low amounts can actually be composted, seeing as it's made from materials like corn. Uh, that kind of stuff, I'm thinking is be best used as a manure around trees. So it's not really the part that you eat isn't really interacting at all with the soil. Looks like I've come to the end of this article. They describe the tumbler and some sort of enzyme and you add to the feces just to make it say, hmm. Yeah, using a tumbler would make sense since you to keep a hot compost, you want to keep it moving. So obviously, using tumbler is the best solution for that. Or if you're not using a tumbler, you want to turn it at least once a day. The enzyme thing, I'm not sure if I've heard of, but that does make sense. Means that you'd want to use something like that to help break down um, on it safely. Yeah, since you mentioned that, let's see if we can look that up. Let's see here. That's an enzyme for septics, like waste. That's probably not it. Enzyme-based additives for human waste treatment. It's for deodorizing. A new enzyme found in compost. That might be something interesting. See what this is all about. Well, if it was on YouTube, you can just go back into your YouTube history, so you can find it that way. A new enzyme found in compost has just set a speed record for breaking down plastic. Okay, that's not what I was looking for, but Interesting. Plastic container thrown into landfill can take hundreds of years to break down naturally, but a new discovered enzyme could eat up the waste in less than a day. The highly efficient polyester hydro hydrolase is known as PAHL7 and was recently found in a German um, cemetery munching through compost. In the lab, researchers found it was able to decompose polyethylene, basically plastic, 9% within 16 hours. That's pretty fast. PHL7 isn't the first natural plastic eater discovered by scientists, but it is the fastest. In 2016, PET guzzling enzyme called LLC was found at a recycling plant in Japan. In the years since, it's been heralded as a gold standard in plastic chomper, but the newly found PAHL7 is 2 times faster at the job. So it sounds like we got things starting to evolve, all of that to eat plastic that we've been producing, which I guess makes sense, seeing as we've gotten to the point where you're not going to find even rainwater without plastic in it. All right. Podcast 149, Feeding Your Soil with Humanure. All right. I'm going to look that up myself. Oh, there it is. All right. Let's put a link to that in the chat there. There. Now, if I'm boring everybody, you can go run off someplace else. Let's see, where was I? Biocatalyst is now developed. Lipzig has been shown to be highly effective in the rapid decomposition of used PET food packaging and is suitable for use in an environmentally friendly recycling process in which new plastic can be produced from decomposition decomposition products. Fortunately, neither PHL7 nor LCC can fully degrade PET plastic with higher crystallinity or organized molecular structure, such as the ones used in some bottles. But if PHL7 is given in a fruit planet made of PET plastic, can break down the waste in less than 24 hours. Okay. Like I said, there is even some plastics that you can put into your compost. You will find like forks and knives. It's labeled as compostable. These are actually not something I'd recommend putting into your compost. So as the plastics will still take a long time to decompose, and those harder plastics plastics from your forks and knives are still kind of too hard to really break down in an effective manner. I was looking at a I was looking at a city e composting method, and they were testing uh, out this, and what they found was the compostable plastic bags labeled BPI approved were perfectly fine for composting, but the plastic forks and knives and thicker material like that just wasn't breaking down for them. And being this is a city composting thing, they're obviously using a hot compost, so that's going to have a quicker breaking down when if you're using a cold compost, or sort of lazy composting method. It's like usually what I use, or what probably most people in a garden, unless they're using a tumbler, is going to be using. Let's see here. When researchers in Germany replaced his polyethylene with lysine. Yeah, good luck trying to pronounce those words today, huh? In another enzyme, the organism became much faster at breaking down than plastic. In fact, I think its efficiency was on par with PHL7. Okay, so what they were doing there, they were replacing the enzyme in the organism, so it could break down these things faster, which could mean that we could create a plastic eating organism that's super efficient that way, which I suppose is good. Though reading all this, I'm kind of wondering, what is the organism breaking down the plastic into? Would be my question on that. Uh, okay, here we are. First time we have proven is the way that bacteria actually digest plastic into CO2 and other molecules. Is just a quick search on that. So it's breaking it down into CO2, which doesn't really sound too good, considering that's one of the main things we're dealing with our climate change thing. But oh well. Here, rose to the challenge of greenhouse gases. I wonder how long it will take to beat the plastic problem. Well, sounds like the breaking down of plastics is helping to produce greenhouse gases. So not exactly. So it sounds like one problem feeds into the other there. Conclusion here from the author: by employing powerful enzymes such as PHL7, it is possible to directly recycle post-consumer thermophore PET packaging in a closed loop process with a low carbon footprint and without the use of petrochemicals. Okay, so this one's saying with a closed loop process, so we can reduce the carbon footprint. And so that's a good thing. So I guess this, as it breaks down, we're able to trap the carbon in some process, realizing a sustainable recycling process is some important BE2 plastic waste stream. So that sounds like it be in the sort of Well, thanks for stopping by. What was I just saying? Oh well, moving on. Next up, we have another thing on microbes and trees. Soil microbes that survive if tough climates can help young trees do the same. Sounds interesting. Microbial stress can be a boon for young trees. Uh, Trees grown in soil with microbes that survive drought and high or low temperatures have a better set at survival when facing the same conditions. Trees live a long time and they don't move or evolve very quickly. He says for Richard Lanku, a forest ecologist at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. They do have a close relationship with fast adapting soil microbes, including fungi, which can help plants survive stressful conditions. But it was unclear whether microbes have previously survived various climates and stresses. This might give inexperienced baby trees encouraging or changing climate a leg up. With friends in the soil, little trees might have more new tools in their toolkit than we give them credit for to survive tough conditions, as he says. Now, this kind of sounds a lot like how our own gut bacteria can help us out in different ways as well. Again, like I said earlier, the microbes in the soil are essentially functioning like our own gut bacteria for the plants. For the study, he and fellow ecologists, this is Sandra Alsop and Isabel George, both also at the university. He collected soil from 12 spots in Wisconsin and Illinois that varied in temperature and amount of rain. The team then used the soil to plant an abundance of 12 native tree species, including white oak. Overall, we had thousands of plants we were monitoring, and they said. Looks like that's all I have on that article. Looks like the article there ends. They have read more on Science News, but unfortunately, Science News is being a pain and only allowing subscription only. You need to read their sources. Garden State Murder. Hello. As I have here. So, as you can tell, usually my live streams are me just sitting here reading the interesting articles I come across when I'm researching for videos. Uh, Seeing as this is the 1 year celebration of the first video I uploaded. If you want to be technical, I actually started the channel yesterday, but I didn't really upload anything until today. a few of the to give sort of shout outs to some of the people here that kind of inspired me. He, of course, the purple rhymes with orange. She inspired me to start this channel in the first place. Not sure if she'll show up. She might be on a little bit later. I know they were busy today, but one of the channels that kind of got me started on the path on gardening right now would be the Self-Sufficient Me channel, which is kind of weird for me to be shouting out channels bigger than mine, especially when there are over 2 million in subscribers. But yeah, this guy was pretty influential to me when I was first really getting into my main garden here on a permanent basis. Yeah, some interesting stuff here and there. And this guy's in Australia, so his climate is fairly similar to mine. I mean, and that's basically when I was first starting out, what I was looking for were channels that were obviously growing in similar conditions to me. Need to get so I could get ideas of the sort of plants that I could grow in my environment. And even though this guy is on pretty much the complete opposite side of the world to me, he, his environment is still very similar to mine, which is kind of sounds a little bit counterintuitive when you consider that you could have conditions only a few miles away from you be very different from you. Uh, Let me see another one to go with would be the Gardner Scott channel. I like to I go on to his live streams on Monday. He uh, you've treated those as basically my gardening class. That's once a week. There's quite a bit I've learned in those live streams since I've been going on to them, and he's shouted my channel out along with a number of other small channels. So really great to have that endorsement. The Gardner Scott is a master gardener, so he's actually went and took formal training to garden, and he's also taken classes in preserving food as well. Which those videos, those of his of how to preserve food, don't get as much traction. So I suppose I should shout those out. They're definitely worth looking into though, since he really does know what he's doing. And if you want to do some um, preserving food, it's also a good channel to go to check that out. Oh, and speaking about channels that inspired things, we have Purple in the chat here, who helped push me to start this channel in the first place. So, another slightly smaller channel, but still way bigger than me. I definitely recommend is Gardening in Canada, Gardening with Science, which if you haven't if you've been paying attention to the articles I've been reading, should say something I like to look into. Now, this one is run by a soil scientist, and she mostly focuses on mostly indoor gardening and soil, obviously, since she's a soil scientist. But there's quite a bit you can learn from here, and as we've gone over so far, our soil is very important for growing. Oh, all right. Well, nice to have somebody to chit chat with in here. I'll keep an eye out for you. But yeah, there's a lot here. She does like to get into the science of things, which is something I like to do myself. Though she's a trained scientist, unlike me, who's just some schmo who drinks and knows stuff. Let's see here. What else is be good to point out? There's so many good gardeners worth pointing out here, or that had been inspiration and everything. Here's a good one. There, Robbie and Gary Gardening Easy. I like this one because they really focus a lot on reusing materials. As you can probably see in this video, how to plant plastic totes and chairs. I use a lot of totes and stuff in my garden as well. So it's a great channel to learn about tricks and how to reuse junk that you have laying around. My favorite drink is rum. Currently, my favorite rum is the Kraken Black Label. Though I've also liked for something a little bit more kick to it, I like the Kilo Kai rum. And there's this cinnamon cream rum. It's actually, if you look for it, it'll actually be under the mixers, but it's really good straight as well. And if you mix it in with some, there we are. Hello. If you mix it in with some Fireball whiskey, it's pretty good. Let's see what other flavors, types of rum have you tried that I really like?
Oh, sorry, I was still muted.
Yep.
I was saying I like the Fireball whiskey. That's the alcoholic kick in my in my Dragon Ball tea.
Yeah, you've made your own mix since you can't handle the sugars in the rum, right?
Well, I like whiskey, but yeah, I'm allergic to sugar cane, so I can't have rum.
Yeah, what is that mix that you use for it?
It's my own home blend for tea that it's a mix of black tea, peppermint, and chamomile. That I do hot brew iced tea with a bit of sugar, and then I give it a kick of a double shot of the Fireball whiskey. The cinnamon and the peppermint go together really nicely.
Sounds good. Oh, and this is actually the first time you get to see my background since I've been covering it up this whole time, really.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here earlier, and unfortunately I can't stay very long either.
Yeah, that's okay.
Excuse me. Yeah, I still have to run and get back down to the government center today before they close. 'Cause I still have more paperwork I have to deal with.
Yeah, right.
So how's it been going for you here?
Yeah, not too bad. A small little group of people here, but good people on the same.
Well, so far Mark Caesar was the only one I saw in the side chat that I've recognized. I see
yeah.
most of the other ones are gardening channels, clearly.
Yeah, the Skid
Oh, and there's
Scratcher here,
skits.
and Greg popped in real quick at the beginning.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was listening to you for a little bit there. I'm gonna have to check out some of those gardening channels you were talking about, especially that one you were talking about. I missed the name about that he also does a lot of stuff about food preservation.
Oh, Gardner Scott. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll have to look into his channel.
Yeah, I hang out on his weekly podcast on Monday.
Oh, what time is that at?
They're at 11 my time, so it'd be what, 10 your time?
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, I'm usually not up at that hour.
So it'd be right when you're waking up. They usually go for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, the way my sleep's been going, I rarely get to bed before sunrise, so then I don't get out of bed until close to noon.
Yeah. Well, you always catch him on the replay too.
Yeah, I'll have to check out his channel. Mark Caesar says good people and me. Yeah, Mark, you're generally a good person.
Yeah, you're a good person. Hey, you gave me a good tip on that soil pH test.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware that Mark brews his own whiskey.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I wish it was not so complicated to ship it to, but trying to ship alcohol internationally gets into a lot of problems. I would have loved to have a chance to sample what he makes.
Yeah, from my understanding, there's a lot of problems specifically in Florida as well. You don't even run into in some other parts of the country.
Yeah. They get real touchy about alcohol.
Mm. Let's see here. Do we have anything else here?
I have been getting some good tips off of your channel too, and I don't know. I've always been really good at killing house plants, so I never got very far with gardens.
I have to run my own experiment with the unkillable houseplants.
Well, I have been thinking of trying at least an herb garden in my window. My biggest problem is that I'm sure that Sammy, my cat, would eat it. Yeah, any plant I've tried to have while he was here, he just thinks it's a salad bar.
Oh, actually, that reminds me of something I was looking at here.
Which actually, I do have to get a planter started just for that, to specifically have some cat grass for him, so he's got something that he can eat.
Well, I suppose what you could do is put something around it to keep him out.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking of if I could if I could hang him even, but I'm not even sure if that's going to be effective with him not being able to get up to him because he's used to getting up to high places.
Maybe a cage around it in some fashion.
Yeah, I probably would have to do something like that, like, put a chicken wire dome over it or something.
Hmm. Yeah, you can also maybe some kind of tall basket or something. Well,
Yep.
yeah, probably chicken wire dome would probably be the best because since you can kind of mold that into whatever shape you need.
Yep. He heard me talking about him, so now he's up here trying to knock the keyboard out of my lap.
Don't hang the cat. Well, I'm pretty sure the cat will hang themselves if they trying to go after the hanging plants.
Well, I tried to make my apartment very cat friendly for him. I tried to engineer that he can get up to high places. I know for him that's his safety thing. In the old apartment, anytime anyone other than me was ever in there, he was up on top of the refrigerator.
Speaking about catnip, there'll be an article we'll be covering in a bit.
Yeah, actually, I was going to try to grow some catnip for him too.
Came across an article that's talking about how we found is going from 2021, but we found exactly what it is about catnip. Yep, that repels mosquitoes.
Ah, I didn't know catnip repelled mosquitoes.
Yep. Or at least a substance that's in the catnip that will repel it. You'd have to, if you're going to be using it as a repellent, you'd probably have to crush it up and stuff.
Oh, okay, so it's not the plant growing, it's using its leaves in another form.
Yeah. You'd have to get the stuff that's inside the plant.
Yeah. Yeah, get the essential oils out of it.
Yeah. That's pretty much true for just about any plant, really.
Yeah. Well, catnip's in the mint family, isn't it related to spearmint?
I believe so.
Oh, there we go.
Let's see. What family is exactly here? Nepeta is a genus flowering plant in the family. Check out the family. Yep. It's in the family with the basil, mint, rosemary, sage, savory, marjoram, oregano, thyme, lavender, yada yada.
Yeah, Mark's saying he grew catnip and his cat just turned his nose up to it. Yeah, I found that actually I've only found that out a couple of years ago that apparently about 15 to 20% of cats are immune to it and it will have no effect on them. Yeah, and I had one cat like that when I lived with my ex back in the 90s that I used to joke about Tasha being the just say no poster child.
And since we're speaking about pets here, looks like Molly came in to get some attention.
Although I have always felt that if you had a neighbor that you just wanted to get some mild revenge on, the way to do it would be to seed their lawn with catnip so all the stray cats hang out there.
I suppose if they don't like cats.
Well, cats tend to not do good things to lawns, so if they're really worried about keeping a really nice lawn, if they have stray cats hanging out there every day, it probably wouldn't go well. Mind you, they wouldn't have a mouse problem.
No. Definitely help the mice. Oh.
That's why cats decide to live with us in the first place. If you try to keep hundreds of pounds of grain around, there's always lots of mice.
Yep. Yeah.
Mark Caesar's asking about using catnip as an herb in cooking. I don't know what kind of flavor it would give to food.
I've never tried it, but I do believe it is edible.
Well, if it's in the mint family, there's no reason it shouldn't be. I have had a couple of women that I've lived with. I have sworn by catnip tea for menstrual cramps. Actually, it was my late fiance that gave me the idea for that, and I've introduced a couple other women to it. And no, actually, it was my ex who first introduced me to it before my late fiance. I showed it to her. But yeah, I've known 3 or 4 women that after they've tried it, they have sworn by it.
Hmm.
But you got to make sure you get the good organic catnip. A lot of the processed stuff, just you can't be so certain what might be in it or what kind of pesticides they may have used on it.
Yeah. Just looking at it, doing a quick look up, WebMD has catnip is possibly safe for most adults when taken by mouth in small amounts. Cupful amounts of catnip tea have been consumed without no serious side effects. However, your catnip is possibly unsafe when smoked or taken by mouth in high doses.
Hmm.
So, in moderation, basically.
Yeah. Doesn't say anything about what the possible side effects would be if you take too high a dose, though, huh?
I was just reading the expert. Let's see if we can find a little bit more. Here, let's see here.
Oh, yeah, Mark Caesar's adding some more about it in the side chat about it being used in Italian salads.
Although it is used diminished in catnip is still used in Italian in salad soups, egg dishes, and stuffing, and for vegetables.
Okay, maybe I should experiment with it a bit.
Yeah.
I've been doing more cooking than I used to do. Well, the Sloth Girl's not able to cook as much as she used to, so
I imagine.
since I've been having to do more cooking, I've been experimenting more with different spices and things.
Well, doing a quick thing, it says catnip tea has a woodsy, almost grassy taste.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it'd probably be kind of a let's see, the longer it sits with lemon in it, the more you'll taste the natural underlining minty, citrusy flavor.
Yeah, I've tried it as tea.
Let's see if we can find thing. Okay, here we are. Side effects from too much catnip can cause headaches and vomiting.
Yeah, Mark Caesar was just adding that too. He said large quantities can cause headaches, vomiting, and digestive discomfort. It's also a diuretic.
Yep.
Which actually, those are probably exactly the effects of why they feel it helps with menstruating.
Yeah. Oh. Sounds like it'd be good if you're constipated.
Yeah, again, figuring out what the correct dosage would be to deal with the problem without causing other effects.
Yeah, which is always a problem with any natural remedy.
Yeah, any kind of herbal remedy, you can never be sure of a consistent strength of it. That even if you've used it successfully before, you don't know if the herbs you're getting are always going to be the same dosage for the same amount used.
Yeah, you're almost sure you're not going to get the same dosage, and usually you're looking at sort of a range of dosages. So you might end up underdosing or overdosing depending on how the plant is grown.
Yeah, that's during my pagan years. I experimented with a number of herbal remedies and found some of them to be useful, but found the results to be too inconsistent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I figured that's what it was, that I could never tell how much of the active ingredient I was ever getting.
Oh. Yeah, I guess I'll cover this catnip thing.
I wonder what kind of stuff it likes in the soil. If I'm going to grow some catnip in a pot, what I should put in there to help it grow.
Probably, if it's in the mint family, probably around the same conditions you would grow just about any other mint.
Okay, well, I wouldn't know what that is offhand. What kind of fertilizer ratio it would like or whatever, or what kind of pH it would grow best in.
Probably a closer to neutral pH, so around like a 6.5, 7.
Yeah, my dad was just a superb gardener. He could grow just anything, and the amount of vegetables he got from a small backyard garden was amazing.
Basically, any of your store-bought potting soils would probably work just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that he had planted some spearmint for my mom, and it grew just so incredibly thick. It was a good thing that he knew about it beforehand, so it didn't take over the whole garden.
I've almost wanted to plant this stuff and see if I can get it to take over my yard.
Apparently, it's one of those plants that it springs up new plants from the roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I know that for him to keep it contained, what he had done was cutting the bottom out of a trash can and burying the whole trash can. So that basically he could keep the roots confined to that one area.
That's actually something I need to do. I was actually planning on doing it as a video. I was taking some of the mint I have and separating them out by breaking up the soil and replanting it. You can actually encourage the plant to grow a little thicker.
Yeah, Mark, that's my father used to go to the horse riding stables and used to bring back just loads of the horse manure and mix that up with the straw and the grass clippings from the yard. So that's why he got everything to grow. In fact, things grew so well that one year my sister had been tapping her pipe out on her bedroom windowsill, and we wound up with a 3-foot pot plant growing under her window. Just
Gee,
any seeds that hit the ground were going to grow.
Gee, how'd that get there?
I always wondered whether or not my dad ever recognized what it was, or if he just thought it was a weed and just pulled it up.
Well, if he was as good of a gardener as you're saying he was, he probably did know what it was.
I would think so, but I was just wondering why nothing was ever said about it. We also had an incident where for Halloween my mom had hung some of the Indian corn on the front door. The ones that have all the different color kernels in them.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the squirrels had stolen some of the corn and buried it under the trees in the front yard. So the next spring we had half a dozen corn stalks come up.
Nice. Yeah, I ended up getting little seedlings here and there from the squirrels burying the acorns around the yard. Let's see.
The house I rented in New York, just kind of the yard and the whole area had been kind of let go for a couple of years. So when I was trying to get things under control again, I I found like a dozen maple saplings, that were all like 2 to 3 feet tall. But rather than just uprooting them and throwing them out, I decided to try and gently dig around them, and I put them into pots and I gave them away. I just advertised it in one of the local internet groups for anybody who wanted maple trees.
Nice.
So I had like 3 different people come and get maple saplings.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do with extra plants you don't need or want.
Well, especially when I encourage more trees.
Yeah. Onto this thing, we have scientists may have finally found out how catnip repels insects. A whiff of catnip, yep, that's just the expert thing. The active component of catnip in Nepeta cataria repels insects. It does this by triggering a chemical receptor that can spur sensations such as pain or itching. But basically, what this thing came across was the insect has some as a gene TRPEA1, and which it detects the catnip, that chemical in the catnip, as an irritant. So basically, it's same as if you were getting into like something that would cause you to itch or something, or have an allergy to it.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good idea to let the cats roll around in the catnip.
Yeah.
Help keep bugs off of them. Maybe help keep fleas off of them.
Yeah, that's similar to what I use in Molly's dog bath soap. It says neem oil. It's another plant that has it's actually quite frequently used as a insecticide in gardens, as still as a something I'd regard as a last resort kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I didn't have more time for you here, but I'm gonna have to get going because it's now 3:30 my time. So I've got to get these papers back to the courthouse by 4 o'clock.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, I would, wish things had scheduled better, that I had more time for you. You've always been such a great help for keeping my show going.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well, we will see you tomorrow then. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Back out to this article. Let's see, where was I? The sensor here is dubbed TRPA1 and is common in animals from flatworms to people. Oh, it's trigger or person to cough off or an insect to flee when they encounter an irritant. Those irritants can range from cold or heat to wasabi or tear gas. Catnips repel will affect insects. Or go back, get down to the studies here. Studies have shown the catnip may be ineffective at deterring insects. What they use synthetic repellent known as DEET. What hadn't been known was how catnip repelled insects. Excuse me. To find out, researchers exposed those mosquitoes and fruit fly to catnip, and then they monitored the insect's behavior. Fruit fly ants were less likely to lay eggs on the side of a petri dish that was treated with catnip as its active component. The chemical is called nepeta-lactone. Mosquitoes also were less likely to take blood from a human head and coated with catnip, as what Purple was mentioning, in having the cat roll around in the catnip. It may actually help with keeping the mosquitoes off them. in the same manner. Insects like that had been genetically modified to lack TRPA1 and, however, had no aversion to the plant. So that'd be one way the insects could actually evolve a method of getting around that. Also, tests in lab-grown cells showed catnip activates TRPA1. Behavior in lab test data suggests that insect TRPA1 senses catnip as an irritant. Learning how the plant deters insects could help researchers design even more potent repellents, as they might be good for low-income countries hit hard by mosquito-borne diseases. As oil extracts from the plant or the plant itself could be a great starting point in society. He is a neuroscientist at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. If a plant can make a chemical that activates TRPA1 in a variety of animals, none are going to eat it. This is Paul. He's a neuroscientist at University of Waltham in Massachusetts. He was not involved in the work. Catnip probably didn't evolve in response to predation and from ancient mosquitoes or fruit fly, as he says. That's because the plant ants are on the insect's main menu. Instead, the insects might have collateral damage, doing collateral damage to catnip. Fight with some other plant nibbling insect. The finding does make you wonder what the target is in cats, and says Craig Egg. He's a neuroscientist in California. Oh, spam there. Phone was going off there. He also was not involved in the study. And there's also a question of whether a plant might send in signals through different cells, such as those for pleasure or in the cat nervous system. So this gives us a better idea of how the plants work itself overall. Luckily, the plant its bug off nature doesn't affect people. Well, that's a sign of a good repellent. And human TRPA1 did not respond to catnip in lab-grown cells. Plus, he adds the great advantages that you can grow catnip in your yard. Well, I may have to consider growing some catnip in my garden to help with a mosquito population. That also kind of makes me wonder if fleas are affected by it as well. And seeing as I wanted to go about 2 hours here, I still got time to look into that. This is just a lawn site. Catnip is an active component triggers chemical responses for fleas, and mosquitoes that make them feel pain and urging. So apparently, that's getting into what we were just talking about. So apparently, it does work on fleas as well. So, got a few neighborhood cats around here. I might end up attracting a few neighborhood cats with the catnip, but it might help with controlling mosquitoes around here. Of course, like I said, to get the active ingredient, you want to crush the plant. So just growing it openly is probably not going to help too much. But, take some, crush it, put in some water. Might work. And like I said, I have the neem oil and Molly's waterless bath soap, which is often used as an insecticide aid for natural insecticide in gardens, which also comes from the neem plant. As for the soil microbes that survive tough climates, helping with trees grow, kind of makes me wonder what would happen if we intentionally stressed out a sample of soil. So intentionally stress the microbes in that soil, and add that to our gardens. Would that actually help with healthier plants? That might be something interesting to test out. What I'm thinking is, this is kind of just off the top of my head, for this a little experiment would be, you take your compost, you set aside a portion of that compost, intentionally stress the microbes in the portion that you set aside, and then you can have a control with the compost that you didn't stress the microbes out in and other, and well, you have the other side with the stressed sample. And see if the plants grown in the stressed sample will do better than the ones grown in the non-stressed. Now, obviously, you'd want to mix the stressed sample in with with the regular sample as well. Seeing as you're probably going to be reducing the amount of microbes in the soil that way. But might be something to try. This is a mess of an article, but fortunately, like I said, Science News doesn't want me to look at their site unless I subscribe, and really you can get every article from other places. Guess I'll make this the last topic for the day. Ultrasound reveals tree drought survival secrets. Tissue of living trees would hold the key to understanding why some plants survive if drought while others perish. In old forests, it can be difficult to evaluate those tissues. Indeed, 90-year-old trees are unable to get into the lab for an imaging scan. So the majority of research on how drought affects plants is conducted in laboratories using younger trees. So by ripping cores off of a mature tree is an alternative strategy was developed by eco physiologist Miss Barbara Baker and University of Edinburgh in Australia. They moved the lab to the trees. The researchers installed tough, waterproof with ultrasonic sensor using mature stands of spruce beech trees used in the Kensingberg Forest outside Edmonton, and to prevent summer rain from falling on some of the on the stands. Roofs had been in place over them, resulting in the fake drought. To learn how the mature spruces and beech trees deal with prolonged long dry spells, researchers fitted the stands with ultrasonic sensors and electrical probes. College of Innsbruck scientists stated in the December plant biology that 5 years of observation showed that beeches are more drought resistant than spruces. Investigating the underlying mechanism has clarified this variation. Take a moment, take a sip of my tea. Compared to tree is exposed to summer rainfall, trees under drought stress produce these more ultrasonic signals. Deep within the tree, its vascular system, tiny air bubble, known as embolisms, were reflecting those feeble acoustic vibrations. Evaporation from leaf pores cause water to go up the stem of a tree, maintaining surface tension in its hundreds of small vessels. Yet, if the earth is dry, the upward force might result in embolism that clog the veins. Spruce has been significantly more to the studies in beet, each indicating that he had a far higher rate of embolisms. This is true even though beech is at least above ground and seem to handle the water more carelessly. By healing the pores on their leaves. These trees can prevent embolism, but there is a cost. By doing the carbon dioxide supply that dry is photosynthesis, which creates the sugar using carbohydrate the trees need to live and grow is cut off. According to he can mature their trees in dry condition is must decide between starving to death or dying of thirst. What a choice there, huh? Although keeping their pores open longer than the conifer did, beeches experienced fewer embolisms than the spruce, according to Bacon literature. It could be the beeches have stronger water stores and roots that reach deeper. Moisture soil that is supported by the additional study is conducted after the researchers ended the drought. The researchers soaked the soil and the experiment was complete by most criteria. All the plants recovered well. Water-filled embolisms and rates of photosynthesis is in the previous purchase per each tree is equal to those of control groups. Yet the spruces water store were still low when Berkeley assisted the trees electrical current resistance as a signal of moisture level was deep within trunks. These trees didn't entirely recover after just one rainy season. It is unknown if or how long it will take for spruces to restock their supplies. It is a long and extended drought. Interesting takeaways on that. So, if I still have anyone here, thank you for coming by. And I guess I'll be closing this out then.